Okay, so the question here is how to format data for R. The good news is that we all store our data in different ways, and there are tons of ways to read data into R. I just show you in these workshops how to read in CSV files. That'll work for any comma-separated Excel file. Generally speaking, the best practice is going to be to store your data in what's called long form. In this data set, you can see Otsego here. In this data set, you can see I have a column for lake, date, month, year. The lake column is repeated over and over and over again. Otsego Lake for every single observation of the data, even though it's one piece of information. Now, many of us might store that in a spreadsheet in an Excel workbook, right? Maybe you've got 5 different spreadsheets in a workbook, one for each of your lakes. There are there are functions for reading Excel files by sheet. I generally don't teach them because most of what I work with, especially in workshops, classes, and my own research, are called flat files, single large files that have been output from a database where I've maybe mushed together a whole bunch of different long form data sets. You can convert how the data are laid out after you read them in. So for example, this is a long form data set. If I chose to work with it in wide form, maybe I wanted each value of DO by day by lake. I could use functions like pivot wider. I'm just going to type it in the console so you can see it. This is one from, I believe, the dplyr package. That's basically the same thing as a pivot table in Excel. And pivot tables are my favorite part of Excel, right? It's the single most powerful utility that I take advantage of in that program, although there are a number of amazing features there if you know what you're doing. So pivot wider will let me change from this long form to a wide form if I need to. The cool thing, though, is that if I started with wide form data, which a lot of us keep because it makes intuitive sense, right? And a lot of us are going to store our working Excel files like this. You can also pivot longer and stack your data. There's a whole bunch of other functions in R. Spread will do the same thing as the pivot wider function. Gather will do the same thing as the pivot longer function, just in slightly different ways. And then back in the day, everybody used to use the cast or melt functions from the reshape and reshape 2 packages. So there's no, one way that people store their data. If I was going to choose a best way to format data for reading into R, what is known as long form data really are most conducive to the fastest workflow. But you can always change it if you know the code. There are cheat sheets for data management. That I would guess is probably one of the most commonly downloaded cheat sheets in the entire RStudio cheat sheet page is for data management, just because of things like this. On Friday, we'll play with a data set that can be converted back and forth between wide and long format for use in specific functions. That's a great question.